All right, you guys, welcome to the sixth and final part of my best friend went to prison for murder. Now, as you guys know by now, it's my ex best friend. We're not still friends. But I had to make the title, get you guys interested to view. But regardless, I do want to say for this part of the story, viewer discretion is advised. There are some gruesome and horrific details in this part, and I will be as careful as I can out of respect for the victim and their family. However, I do want to let you guys know that this is all information that is available publicly. It is available online. There have been several news articles and statements and things like that about the situation. So these are all things you can go look up on your own time if you want more detail. But I just want to say, rest in peace to the victim. Um, it's very unfortunate that this is the way that their life had to end over the type of situation that it was. And to Tiffany, um, I can't even begin to understand what went through her mind when she committed this crime. But overall, very sad case for everyone involved and even her child. To have to grow up with their mother behind bars is not ideal. So I just want to say that if you haven't seen the other parts of this story, please go ahead and watch parts 1 through 5. They're available on my channel now. But I let's get into it. So I have my handy dandy iPad, and we're going to be referencing this a lot because this is where all the factual details are. Um, but as I mentioned in the last part, December, I was able to actually go back and actually find the text messages because your girl never deletes anything. I keep everything because I have to have my receipts when I need them. But December 21st, 2021, so after I had taken my finals, let's be clear on that, at 12:44 a.m., so a little bit past midnight, I received a text from my mom, and it was a YouTube video link from the local news station in my hometown with Tiffany's mugshot plastered right on there. And my mom had asked me, "Is this Tiffany?" And like I said, sure enough, it was. And it was, you know, the title was very general. It just said, woman charged with homicide. I wasn't quite sure the details. And it was much more shocking when I did find out the details, what they really were. But in her mugshot, she looked very different. She looked like she had scars or like injuries, like all like scratches on her face. And, she didn't look good. And when I went and read the article from the news station, it was very, very generic. It didn't say too much, but it was enough to make you go like, wow. I'm going to read you the news article and then I'm going to get a little bit more in depth about I'm going to read you the I'm going to read you the news article and then I'm going to get a little bit more in depth about the whole situation. I actually have the actual document of the criminal complaint of everything, including the security camera transcripts of what went on at the time. So again, I am choosing to redact certain information just because I don't know that I want it on the internet. And like I said, all of these things you probably could Google with the information I'm telling you. But again, I've changed the names of everybody involved um, because I just think that's the right thing to do. And, you know, just out of respect for certain people involved. Um, so this is the news article that was released on the the day it happened and it was updated after she was sentenced. So we're going with the sentenced version. So it says a woman has been sentenced to 26 years in prison for hitting a man with a car and killing him. Um, Tiffany was charged with first-degree intentional homicide in the death of the victim, and she pleaded guilty. The victim was 41 years old and was hit by Tiffany. Tiffany told police that she had met the victim the day before and that they were drinking and doing drugs. Tiffany allegedly stabbed the victim 3 times in the legs and in the stomach, and the victim fought back until he could get the knife from her and laid down in the street. Apparently, and allegedly, Tiffany took the victim's car keys, got into the car, and ran him over, allegedly missing a few times, but coming back to hit him multiple times to make sure he was dead. And that is in quotes because she said that out of her own mouth that she was intentional about running him over multiple times to ensure that he was deceased. Um, the medical examiner's office conducted an autopsy and found that he died from blunt force trauma. In addition to the prison time, Tiffany was sentenced to 14 years of extended supervision. So that is the basis of the crime, but it is a lot more gruesome than that. Um, which is just I haven't, I haven't spoken to her, so I don't know her thoughts. I don't know what really went on, and we only have her side of the story because he was, she did what she did. So there is no one from his side to tell his story or his version of events. And the unfortunate part of this is that there were multiple witnesses, but and seeing this has to be so mentally disturbing, and I hope that those people got services and resources and therapy for what they had to visualize and what they had to see that day. Um so that is the news article. Okay. So now we're going to talk about the criminal complaint that has all of the details of the situation. Um, what they initially tried to charge her with was first degree intentional homicide, use of a dangerous weapon. This is a class A felony, and they would, if convicted, the defendant would be sentenced to imprisonment for life. Now, what she actually ended up getting was first degree reckless homicide, which is a class B felony. And as I mentioned earlier, she got 26 years plus an additional 14 years of extended supervision. Um, is that enough for taking someone's life? Um, I don't know if I could be the judge of that, but it is extremely unfortunate. That's all I can really say. I'm gonna have to redact a lot of information, so bear with me as I read through this, but I will give you what I can. Um, on December 9th of 2021, officers were dispatched for a homicide investigation. Upon arrival, officers identified the victim, and the victim was pronounced dead on the scene at 6:24 a.m. by the fire department due to injuries from being run over by the vehicle. Officers learned from eyewitnesses that this incident involved the use of a black SUV and a black 2011 Cadillac SRX. Inside of the SUV was the defendant, Tiffany. The vehicle had accident damage and blood on the front passenger side headlight and grille. Officers arrested the defendant, and during the arrest, the defendant made several unsolicited statements to officers. The defendant was asked multiple times if she needed if she needed medical attention as officers observed blood on her person. I'm trying to like self audit while I read out loud so that way I don't say what I don't mean to say. So excuse me if I say something wrong. Um, While the fire department spoke with her, she said, end quote, "I know why I hit him for my safety, but I was hoping that he was still okay. That's just the kind of person I am. But I 100% refuse because I am 23 years old and I have a 2-year-old at home. And there's no way guys should be able to force me to go to the doctor when I'm feeling completely fine." She also told officers that the victim said he was going to pull a gun on her, so she ran him over. So that is just like the general, initial scene investigation and the arrest. Okay. Now, this is the unfortunate eyewitness statement from someone who lived at the scene of the accident or the scene where this occurred. So one of the detectives interviewed the eyewitness, and the witness said that after she took a shower that morning, she heard yelling from outside sometime after 5:45 a.m. in the morning. The witness said that she looked out of her window and saw a male and female tussling. It initially looked like the male was on top of the female, hitting her, but then she saw the female pulling the male and dragging him. At some point, the female grabbed her purse and walked over to a vehicle. The witness said that the vehicle was parked by the alleyway facing westbound and was either black or smoky gray and believes it was a Cadillac. The witness said that while the female was in the vehicle, the male was yelling help. And then the female got out of the vehicle and hit the vehicle with something in her hand. The female then walked over and kicked the male in the face while he was on the ground like a dog. The male flew backwards and the female got back into the car. The witness described that the male got up and tried to hide behind a tree, and the female drove at him in the car, seemingly trying to hit him with the car. The female missed him a few times, but then hit him with the car more than once. The witness believes she hit the male 3 or 4 times. The witness said that the female then drove around the block and hit the male again. The witness described multiple times that the female ran over the male even after driving around the block and or through neighbors' yards. The witness said that ultimately she saw the female run over the male's neck and head. I'm sorry, that's really heavy. That's really heavy. I can't even imagine doing that to someone, but also being the person in that situation. I feel like there were multiple opportunities to walk away from this, and instead, Tiffany chose to do what she chose to do. The witness saw the female come back after running the male over and stand over him and say something. The female left when sirens started, and the witness saw the vehicle go into the alleyway. In another interview, the witness was shown a photo array of 6 different women, including the defendant. The witness identified the defendant as the person she saw involved in the physical fight with the victim. Now, there was another eyewitness. Another detective interviewed this eyewitness, and this eyewitness said that she left her house around 6:05 a.m. and was traveling on the street when she saw something in the street that she initially thought that it was an animal. This eyewitness had to swerve around the object and then realized that it was a human body. She pulled over and called 911 for help. While she was on the phone with 911, she saw a black SUV coming from behind her and traveling eastbound on the street. She got out of her car to try to stop the black SUV from hitting the body in the street, and she saw the black SUV stop in the middle of the street by the alley. She saw a Hispanic female wearing dark colored clothing with dark hair exit the black SUV. She then saw this female walk across the street, pick up what appeared to be a black garbage bag near a tree, and put it in the SUV. The witness then saw the female come back from the car and stand over the body without saying a word. The female started to walk away but then came back and stood over the body again. The witness said that the female then looked at her and got back in the SUV and fled northbound through the alley. Y'all, this witness also was shown a photo array of 6 women, and she saw the photo of the defendant, Tiffany, and thought that that probably was the person she saw, but she wasn't totally confident. You guys, it's heavy for me. Like, I read this when it all came out, back in 2021. But like the feelings it's giving me now is just so dark. Like, my stomach hurts. Like, it just is so dark, and it's sickening that a person would do this, and we haven't even talked about the rest of it. Like, I'm not even sure if, how much of this do I want to get into. Um it's quite a lot here. It's quite a lot. Um okay, let's see. We can talk about let's talk about the transcripts from the video surveillance. There was a church that was nearby that was able to capture a lot of what happened, and it even has timestamps of what happened. So, from the timestamps, um keep in mind, y'all, the timing of these video transcripts are a little off from the actual time of the events. So just keep that in mind as you continue watching. At 6:58 a.m., the victim's Cadillac comes in from the street and parks on the north side of the street, just east of the alley. The driver's door of the vehicle opens, causing the headlights to come on. The victim exits the driver's door and walks to the south side of the street. It appears that the other occupant, the defendant, moved to the driver's seat because a hand can be observed coming out of the driver's door that is still opened. The lights on the car start to flash, and the victim runs to the passenger side of the vehicle. Movement can be observed in the driver's seat. At 7 a.m., the driver's door closes and the victim walks south across the street away from the vehicle. The driver's door opens. The victim then goes to the driver's door and pulls the defendant from the driver's seat and onto the ground. A vehicle turns onto the street and stops as the defendant is on the ground and the victim is standing above her. The victim walks in the direction of the stopped vehicle and it reverses back towards the street, and the defendant gets off the ground and goes to the passenger side of the Cadillac. The defendant then goes to the driver's door and the victim runs towards her. The victim stops at the rear bumper of the Cadillac as the defendant is reaching into the vehicle. When the defendant comes from the driver's doorway of the vehicle, the victim starts to walk backwards south across the street, and the defendant starts to run after him. There is a garbage dumpster that blocks the view of what is taking place on the south side of the street, but it appears to be an altercation between the defendant and the victim. Both the defendant and the victim are out of camera view and are most likely on the ground. At 7:04, a subject can be observed on the ground on the south side of the street to the right of the garbage dumpster in the camera view, but they are closer to the street. As the video continues, it appears there is a struggle between the defendant and the victim on the ground. At 7:07, the defendant is observed standing up and walking to the Cadillac and sits in the driver's seat of the vehicle. At 7:08, the defendant exits the driver's door and smashes something on the driver's window. Most likely a glass bottle, as green glass from a 7-Up bottle was located on the street. When she hits the glass driver's window, you can see the liquid from the bottle cover the glass of the vehicle window, but the window glass does not break. The defendant then walks back to where the victim is on the ground. It appears that the defendant is either fighting with the victim again or trying to pull him onto the grass. The defendant falls to the ground. At 7:11, the defendant goes back to the Cadillac and the victim can be seen laying down in the grass. The defendant then gets into the driver's seat of the Cadillac. The headlights on the Cadillac turns on and the vehicle appears to have been started. The defendant is the driver of the vehicle at this time as the victim is still observed on the ground on the south side of the street. The defendant reverses enough to be east of the victim and turns the vehicle to have the front of the vehicle facing where the victim is at. The defendant then drives forward abruptly in the direction of the victim. The victim is observed getting off of the ground very quickly to avoid being struck by the vehicle. The defendant is observed turning the vehicle in the direction that the victim is attempting to flee. The defendant drives up the curb and goes west on the sidewalk, attempting to strike the victim. The vehicle then drives off the curb and back onto the street where the defendant loops around and drives at the victim once again. The victim is still observed standing and the defendant drives back onto the street. The defendant then stops and puts the Cadillac in reverse, lining the front of the car up with where the victim is. She then drives up the curb in the direction of the victim, does not hit him, it ends up in the grass area of the church. Upon making a U turn in the grass, she drives at the victim, ultimately striking him, causing him to disappear from camera view since he is now on the ground. The defendant then drives into the street, makes a U turn, drives back up the curb west of where the victim is on the ground. The defendant then drives back onto the street, and then sorry guys, it's a lot of defendant, victim, defendant, victim. The defendant, which is Tiffany, runs the victim over with the vehicle. This can be determined by the actions of the vehicle. Once down the curb, the front of the Cadillac rises and then falls, and then the rear of the vehicle rises and then falls as the vehicle drives over the victim. At 7:13, all this is happening in very quickly. At 7:13, the defendant drives the Cadillac east onto the street. She turns around on the street and then drives at a high rate of speed westbound on the street and runs over the victim again. The same actions of the vehicle rising and falling can be observed when she drives over the victim. The defendant then puts the vehicle in reverse and drives quickly in reverse, running the victim over again. The defendant was turning as she struck the victim this time, and she ends up in the front yard of the residence located on the northwest corner of the street. After she stops the vehicle, she drives forward again onto the street, running over the victim yet again. The defendant then drives west on the street out of camera view. A witness, the one that was the second witness that was interviewed, is observed driving east on the street and observing the victim in the street. And she swerves around, all of that. So then everything that we talked about is, all of that. So um, the defendant is driving south on the street and then east onto the street that the victim is laying. And she appears to be driving at the victim again, but stops short and then backs the Cadillac up a distance. I'm guessing the reason for this is because the other witness was trying to wave her, not to, to be careful because she had only just observed the body in the street. And so I'm assuming she only stopped because there was now a person there to protect the victim from being ran over again. Um, so again, she stopped the Cadillac, and the other eyewitness is just east of the victim at this point, and she's in her vehicle. The defendant is observed getting out of the Cadillac and walking up to the victim. The defendant appears to be bending over, doing something with the victim. The defendant then walks back to the Cadillac. At 7:17, the defendant backs the Cadillac up and drives north in the alley. At 7:18, reflections of the emergency lights from the first police squad on scene can be seen reflecting on the eyewitness's vehicle. Shortly after, the squad arrives on scene. At 7:18, the defendant driving the Cadillac can be seen pulling into the driveway of her residence. I do want to say that where this altercation took place was just right across the street from where she lived. At 7:19, emergency lights from the squad that located the vehicle and the defendant can be observed activated by the defendant's residence. um, I'm sorry. Like, I know, like, it's easy just to say that, oh, she's in prison for murder, but just knowing the details of what she has done is so dark and it feels so sinister and it just feels like awful. Like I said, my stomach hurts. Like, I really, this is hard to palate. Like, it's just, it's, I don't know. I don't know. Um, we do have her statement that she gave while she was in custody. Um, and this is that. While in custody, the defendant, Tiffany, gave a statement to homicide detectives. The defendant stated that she met the victim on Facebook a week or two ago, but that yesterday was the first time she hung out with him. She stated that the victim picked her up in the black Cadillac SUV earlier in the day on December 8th of 2021 and that she spent approximately 24 hours with him. Tiffany stated that while hanging out, they drank some alcohol and did drugs, including cocaine. The defendant stated that while hanging out at the victim's house, she was putting a lighter and cups on the tables, which angered the victim. She did not like that he was being aggressive, so she asked him to drive her home. On the way to her house, the victim stopped the vehicle on the street and told her to get out. The victim got out of the car and walked across the street. The defendant was not happy because she had a big bag of clothing that she would have to carry home. Again, across. It was across the street. She'd have to carry this big bag of clothes home. And on a side note, I don't know why she had all these clothes with her. I don't know why she packed up so much stuff from her house to take with her to go to this guy's house. I'm not sure how long she intended to stay at this guy's house. It's all like a little, like, why? Like, why did you do that? What was going through your head? These are questions that we may never get the answers to. Um, she took the knife out of her purse and opened it. She moved over to the driver's seat and exited the vehicle. She went towards the victim, who was across the street, and upon getting to him, she began to stab him. She stated that she stabbed him 3 times to the legs and abdomen. The victim was fighting back until he got the knife away from her. The defendant then took the victim's car keys and a shoulder bag he had from him and went to his car. She then stated she drove towards the victim as he was on the ground trying to run him over. She stated that she missed a couple times and was finally able to hit him in the street. She saw he was still moving after she ran him over the first time, so she ran him over a few more times to make sure he was dead. She stated she ran him over the first time to kill him. She knew that she had numerous opportunities to just drive away, but she thought he was a gang member and had access to guns and would come and retaliate. She thought the black bag that the victim had over his shoulder had a gun in it. She stated he never pulled a gun out or ever threatened her with a gun. The only claim was that she said he was going to kill her. After stabbing and running the victim over, she drove away for a short time and came back to the scene. She saw a vehicle on the corner, and it appeared that they were on the phone calling 911. She exited the vehicle and walked up to the victim, and she knew he was dead, so she leaned over and closed his eyes. Is that not bone chilling to you? That is bone chilling to me. She got back in his car and she left the scene when she heard the sirens getting closer. She drove to her residence and a squad car pulled up at her house a short time later. it almost makes me want to cry. Like, I don't know the guy, I don't know anything about him, and I'm not like I don't know I don't know his account of the story, but regardless, there's no reason to ever do anything like this to anybody. There's just no reason. Um I feel like you had so many chances to just I would have just grabbed my bag of clothes and walked home. If it, at least yeah, I don't know. This is not a we listen and we don't judge situation. We listen and we are full on judging because what on earth? And the fact that you bent over and you made sure you closed his eyes, it feels so evil to me. And she claims that she thought he was a gang member, but also then says that he never threatened her with a gun or never showed her a gun. So it's all speculation that he had a gun in that bag. And again, we only have her side of the story. So we have no idea what ensued for her to stab him or to want to run him over. And if he was telling her to get out of the car and walk home, that could have been the end of it. I mean, as much as it would make anybody mad to be dropped off across the street from their house and not directly at their house, I don't think spending almost 30 years of your life in prison is worth it. And if that's even enough time that you should be there, maybe it should be longer because this person never gets to wake up again, never gets to do anything again with their life. And you took this from them. I don't know if it was the drug. I literally don't know anything. I don't know anything because I have not spoken to her. But it's like scary that this is someone that I grew up with, that I knew, that I was close to. And even though she showed signs of being deranged and evil and cold-hearted all of the time that I've known her, because she did horrible things to me, things that I didn't even talk about in this video. She did horrible things to me and to other people, and she was able to turn off her emotions like nothing. She could be cold like it was nothing. So when I talked to some mutual friends about this situation when it happened, a lot of people said that they weren't surprised that she had done something like this. And I don't think I was surprised either. I think I was in shock because I can't put myself in the mindset of a person who would choose to do something like this to another human being ever, or to anything, and regardless of if their intention was to get together and party, it shouldn't have resulted in someone losing their life, especially when there was a choice to walk away. A lot of people are divided about this on the internet. A lot of people feel that she didn't get enough time. Some people feel that, she got way too much time. I am sad for the victim and I'm sad for the child who has to grow up without a mom and without a dad. Um, I have no updates on any of that. I don't know who her child is with or where they are, or anything like that. I haven't tried to find out because it's not even my place to do so. But it's very dark. Um, I do have also the autopsy report. Um, on December 10th, 2021, an autopsy of the victim was conducted at the medical examiner's office. The doctor performing the autopsy observed numerous sharp force injuries to the victim's hands, legs, and torso. The victim also had scrapes and abrasions to his head, face, front and back of his torso, and both arms and legs. In addition, the victim had large lacerations at the midline, low on his back, and right side of his calf. The doctor determined the cause of death to be blunt force trauma and the manner of death to be homicide. This was prepared by the district attorney. So they had a lot of damning evidence against her for this case. So it was pretty straightforward with her trial, if you want to call it that, sentencing, whatever. But yeah, this is not a happy ending, of course, but I am glad that she's behind bars because that's where she should be. And regardless of how anyone feels about it, I think that someone lost their life unjustly. Like I said, I don't know anything about him as a person. I'm not sure if he was a gang member or not. There hasn't been anything on the internet that's come out that suggested or connected him to anything like that. Um, I think, in my personal opinion, that she was trying to save face for or try to justify why she committed the crime and came up with the best thing she could think of in the moment. But I personally feel that she probably was upset that she would have to walk home. And I don't know what kind of state of mind she was in. And I don't know what the extent of the drugs that they took were. And we all know that drugs can be mind altering. So I don't know. I don't know. But I do want to say, of course, rest in peace yet again to the victim. Um, and, all of that. It's just sick. It's sick. And rereading some of these details, like my whole like aura around me is just so like, ugh, ugh. But nonetheless, you know, if people show you red flags, believe them. Don't be such a person where you always want to help somebody just because you feel bad for them. Be careful about the people you have around you and the situations they're doing. And if you have children who have friends who show signs of things like this, just make sure that like they're safe, they're okay. Like I said, I haven't spoken to her at all since May of 2021. So this happened in December of 2021. So several months have passed in between us last speaking. But I haven't talked to her since she's been arrested or been in prison. And I don't really have a desire to. I mean, I have wanted to know why she did it, like what possessed you to do that, but it's not enough for me to reach out to her, to send her a letter, nothing like that. Um, because I don't need that energy in my life. And I just don't think there's anything that she could say that could be of value to me at this stage. But, you know, I, I just, I hope that her, I don't even know what I hope. I really don't even know what I hope for her. I don't know what, I don't know. I look back on the good times we had, and there was a lot more bad than there was good. And some people are not meant to stay in your life. And I don't think me staying a good friend to her would have prevented her from doing something like this because it's clear that she's always been in her whole entire life on a path to do whatever she wanted anyway. Um, but this whole situation definitely taught me a huge lesson about like toxic friendships and red flags, ignoring red flags, and really trusting your gut about people because if they show you who they really are, you have to believe them. And I mean, there's countless of people who we have as mutual friends who will tell you that they always saw something like this coming with her. Like they never doubted that she wasn't going to do something insane when she got older. Um, and, it's concerning that she would think of packing so many clothes to go stay with someone that she had just met on Facebook. And there's varying stories online about her version of events. She said she made multiple statements to police when she was arrested. Um, but nonetheless, guys, that's it. That's the end of this story. Um, I'm not sure if anybody can really say that they have a story to tell like this one because it's not a story I'm proud of for sure, but it is my life and I feel like my life is a movie. There's so many things that I can tell you guys about and I'm sure I will as time goes on. You'll get more story times from me. But this concludes my best friend going to prison for murder. I appreciate you guys as always. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye.